All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for being here in North Dakota. I'm really excited to have all of you. As Denver mentioned, I am with MITRE Corporation. We've been working with Denver and UGPTI on the conference this year and last year, supporting them in their work. We also come with this vehicle over here to my left, so please, at the break, go check it out. Ask lots of questions, see what's going on with that. We'll be doing some autonomous vehicle testing here in North Dakota later this week. So very excited about that. I just briefly wanted to start by running through some background on autonomous vehicles, autonomous trucks, kind of setting up the next 2 days of presentations. I'll be brief. I want to see all the exciting videos and updates that Gary has to share as well. But starting off, I don't know if this clicker works, but if we can advance. So very briefly, who we are at MITRE, we're a research company. We do a lot of work supporting federal, state, and local governments, along with industry and academic partnerships. We are not a commercial autonomous vehicle company, so this vehicle here and everything else we do is for research, and we work across kind of all autonomy domains, so space, air, land, and sea. So those at the bottom there are some of the platforms that we have in our lab back at our office outside Washington, D.C., but we're really trying to bring all of these best practices, all of this knowledge together across autonomous systems and apply that to autonomous vehicles and autonomous trucking, see how we can really bring the best forward from the entire field. So first, I very quickly wanted to start by talking about the levels of driving automation, because I think this is something that's going to come up quite a few times in the next couple of days. In brief, when we're talking about autonomous trucks, we're usually talking about level 3 or level 4 systems. So level 3 will be with a driver in the driver's seat available to kind of support the automated driving system as requested. That might be when some kind of unusual situation arises, the driver can take over and help the autonomous driver get through that situation. The other category, the kind of more advanced category, is level 4. So that would be without driver support, usually without a driver in the seat at all. And that's under some set of operational conditions. So that might be, during the day and during nice weather, or some other set of conditions kind of bounding those operations. So that's most of what we'll see here is level 3 and level 4. Level 0 to 2 are kind of driver support features like you might have in your car that help you stay in the lane, or adaptive cruise control. They're increasingly prevalent, but they do require driver control, so maybe not talking about them quite as much in the context of autonomous driving. And then all the way on the right is level 5. I know the text is small, but down there at the bottom it says that the vehicle can operate everywhere in all conditions. And this kind of stipulation in the language remains a challenge, because everywhere in all conditions, especially when we're up here in North Dakota in February, that gets pretty difficult. So these are just kind of the levels broken out. I think we'll be talking a lot about level 4 autonomous driving, but certainly level 5 everywhere in all conditions all the time is where a lot of folks are striving for. So quickly here, just wanted to talk about how autonomous vehicles make decisions, because there's a few steps in that process, and every company, every system has their own approach to this, but most start with some sort of map in this route planning phase. So they'll drive the route that they want to drive autonomously, they'll collect data, they'll understand what the roads look like, and then they can use that to plan a route. So if you want to go from Fargo to Grand Forks, you'll plan out that route kind of at a high level, figure out what turns, what roads you need to take. But then once you're on those roads, we have much more localized decision making about the behaviors that should be taken. So if there's an emergency vehicle stopped on the shoulder, we know that the behavior is that we have to move over to the left lane to give them space. And so we're taking in all of our sensor data, everything from the LiDAR, the radar, the cameras, to figure out what the environment looks like and what behavior should be taken. After that behavior is identified, then we get into this motion planning phase. So then the question becomes, instead of what behavior should we take, it's how do we take that behavior, how do we actually execute it? And then this lowest level here on the right is what does our system need to do in order to execute that trajectory. So how do we need to steer, how do we need to brake, how do we need to accelerate? So this is kind of the pipeline, the process, looped over and over again, many hundreds of times per second to perceive the environment, decide on a behavior, figure out how to execute that behavior, and then actually send that command to the actuators. The last thing I wanted to mention here is the sensors on the vehicles. So this is, of course, the same vehicle that's over there. We have a pretty simple sensor suite on the vehicle, but it's in a lot of ways pretty similar to what commercial autonomous trucks use. So the big sensors you're going to see on these systems are LiDAR, radar, and camera. And they take all of this data and fuse it together and use that to come up with the perception of the world. Usually you use all of these sensors because they all have different strengths, so you can imagine that a camera would perform really poorly at night, but a LiDAR, it might be really hard to tell if something is a human or a cyclist or something else, right? It can be a little bit harder to figure out the nuances. And so we use all these sensors, pair them together, and get a really good idea of what the world looks like. There are a few other sensors used, so GPS is really important so that the vehicle knows where it is. The IMU kind of gives information about the vehicle itself, so how fast am I moving, what direction am I going, things like that. And then there's a few kind of variations of these sensors, so we have an infrared camera mounted on our vehicle, helps cameras do a little bit better at night, kind of gives another sensing mode. Other ones that are pretty common are microphones, so that we can detect emergency responders and their sirens. Some vehicles have sensors to detect the road surface and the friction level on the surface and adapt their behavior based on that. And then all of these systems have an array of kind of internal sensing so that they know if a part of their system goes down, if they need to take some kind of mitigating behavior, things like that. So we have all these internal fault monitors built into the system. The last thing I want to touch on is this remote support structure. So when companies send autonomous vehicles out on the road, even if they don't have a driver behind the wheel, they're not all alone. They still kind of have eyes on the vehicle and input to the vehicle, and so that comes from these remote support staff, these operations centers, lots of different structures at play. But the role of these staff is to monitor operations and intervene when a challenging situation comes up. They're not given full control of the vehicle, so in most cases there's not anyone kind of remotely driving a truck down the highway, but they kind of give input. So they might say, this object that you see on the road is something that you can just drive over, versus another object that you see on the road might be one that we want to take a path around. Or maybe there's a vehicle stopped in our lane, the remote operator can say, here's a path that you can take around that stopped vehicle. So the autonomous driver, the truck, is in full control of safety all the time, but this remote operator is kind of giving them support along the way to maintain efficiency, make sure that our autonomous truck doesn't just come to a stop when it encounters a challenging situation. So for all of the vehicles on the road across autonomous vehicle companies, there are always eyes on them. There's always support available to the vehicles through these remote support structures. All right, well, we'll give it a second. I think this was my last slide anyways. So that was all I wanted to share, was just some background on how these systems work, what the various structures are, the sensors, the decision-making, things like that. Please come chat with us over at our vehicle at the break. Happy to answer any more questions and dive in a little bit more deeply, but definitely want to turn it over to Gary now and hear what they're doing over at Aurora. So thank you all.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex. And now I briefly introduced Gary McCarthy earlier, and he can tell us a little bit more about himself and what Aurora is doing and show us some great videos.
All right, hopefully I got a wire. There you go. Well, I don't stand in front of podiums very well, so good afternoon, everybody. I'm head of first responder policy at Aurora. My name is Gary McCarthy. I retired from the state of Arizona after 25 years, which, again, when they do bios, it sounds like an obituary, what you used to do. But glad to be here, and I'm going to share some experience with what we do at Aurora. One thing that I'd like to highlight for you guys, Bart Teeter and I came up from Texas, and it was been 100 degrees for months. We're excited to come to North Dakota and experience some cool weather. It was 91 degrees yesterday, and we're like, so Bart's going to counseling tomorrow because he's all upset about the weather. So give Bart some business tomorrow, about today and tomorrow about the weather. Other things too, this is interactive, even though I can't see you because of the lights. If you have a question during my presentation, please feel free to raise your hand, get my attention, and please ask your question, because I want this to be interactive, and you guys to have a good balance of what you're going to see when you go move forward with autonomous trucks and what we're doing. By the way, there we go. Thank you. So Aurora, our whole purpose is to deliver the benefits of self-driving technology safely, quickly, and broadly. The one thing about our mantra is safely. When you look at who we have working at Aurora and what we do, we know what the ramifications are if you don't build a product correctly. People are going to die, people are going to get hurt, and that's what we're trying to avoid. In my law enforcement career, 38,000 to 43,000 people died every year on our roadways. We're trying to drive that number down. And I worked serious injury, fatal collisions for 10 of those years, and I can't remember a fatal collision that wasn't driver error. Speed, distraction, impairment, all those things. So what can we do to change that? And the first time I was in an autonomous truck, autonomous vehicle, I knew we could change that. There's 500,000 large truck crashes every year. 5,936 people die in 2022 from commercial vehicle, motor vehicle crashes. The core technology, he highlighted the levels of autonomy. We're level 4, that's what we're focusing on right now. We run in a specific operational design domain. Our highlight MVP route is from Houston to Dallas. We're moving from El Paso to Aledo, which is outside of Fort Worth, and we're getting ready to go all the way to Phoenix. Now, for those of you with hours of service for Phoenix, we're gonna beat that threshold over 11 hours. From Phoenix to Dallas is roughly 17 hours. On one run, we can run from Phoenix to Dallas straight through with our autonomous truck. So think about how we're going to move goods and services through the country more efficiently. Our system. So Aurora Driver has the sensor suites that he talked about earlier. We have long range, mid-range, and short range sensors. Our long range sensors can see up to 400 meters ahead of itself. It makes decisions a little bit slower than your airbag deploying. So time distance, again, going back to my time working serious injury, fatal collisions, time distance means everything. If you see it, you can avoid it. And for us, that we have proprietary LiDAR system, and there was one video that we had just a few weeks ago in Texas where a tow truck was off right, removing a vehicle from a 2-lane highway, interstate freeway. 600 meters ahead of itself, the Aurora Driver picked up that tow truck off right, moved, because we follow traffic incident management, we moved left into the number 1 lane, went around it at 400 meters, we moved into the number 1 lane, and then after the tow truck, we moved back by. So time distance is our friend, and we can do a lot of things in advance in preparation of that decision it needs to make so quickly. Again, the LiDAR, cameras, microphone, and radar system. The LiDAR system, which you'll see, I'll show videos, is exceptional, but the camera and microphone, which you alluded to earlier, is to pick up law enforcement sirens. Again, people know that with testing, with law enforcement only, we had police and fire and EMS. Sirens have different decibels, so we had to practice, we had to train with all those. So we partnered across the country with Ohio State Patrol, Texas DPS, Frisco Police Department, Frisco Fire Department. We ran scenario after scenario, and we actually did live training scenarios on interstate freeways and arterial streets in Frisco. And one data set, we were able in 1 week of testing, we were able to get 800 law enforcement interactions, public safety interactions in 1 week. And at one scenario, we had 8 emergency vehicles, police and fire, going to the same scene, which is, I've never seen so many emergency vehicles in one location. But we're great partnership and great data collection. But our LiDAR system and our microphone and camera systems are exceptional. It shows you what our first sight LiDAR can see, how far out a traditional LiDAR sees versus our first light LiDAR. Like I talked about, that 400 meters, if you can see further down the road, especially with a big commercial vehicle weighing 80,000 pounds, we govern our trucks at 65 miles an hour. So that way we have time, one, to react to the situation that occurs, but also it's a sweet spot for fuel economy. And if there is a collision, we're trying to reduce some of that damage that occurs. Okay, this is most of you, who here has seen videos or been around AVs? I can kind of see a little bit. Okay, for those of you who have not seen the LiDAR systems below, the camera systems above, and this is a red light runner, and you'll see what the Aurora Driver picks up. Look at all the cars in the intersection is picking up, not only the red light runner. So the vehicle is coming into the intersection, the Aurora driver can pick up on that, and it holds because it knows it's not going to stop. Lets the vehicle clear the intersection, and we proceed through the intersection. For those of you who have not seen the LiDAR system before, the amount of detail, if you think about you sitting in your car in that same intersection or T intersection that you know, and picking up all the cars and all the lanes, left turn, the number 1 lane, number 2 lane, and how that goes. It's hard to pick up all that detail and to make split-second decisions on all those things in your surroundings. Making way for emergency vehicles. Now we know when we're working with first responders, we want our truck to yield to the right, but there's times the first responders have to come down the right side of the vehicle, running lights and siren, mostly lights. So we practice this with Frisco PD on I-45, but this is a live scenario on I-45 that we worked where you had an emergency vehicle passing on the right-hand side. You'll see a fire, an ambulance, and a fire truck come back, again, down the side. They're responding to a collision ahead of us. But if you look at the truck that's highlighted, you'll see it's moving over to the left towards the number 1 lane to create more room for the emergency responders to get through that side of the road. So these are things we tested at TRC Ohio, we tested on the roadway, and we see these all the time on I-45. These interactions occur daily, and we have the ability to adjust and maneuver around and let first responders get by. For those of you, like, especially Montana, my folks in Montana, we talk about elk, deer, buffalo being on the road. So this deer goes across, and we have volume on this. Can we turn the volume up on that, please? So the deer, we pick up the deer crossing the road. The Aurora driver can pick up the direction of travel, and it can see which direction, and that's when the box starts highlighting what it's going to do. As the deer's crossing, it sees that the deer's going to go back to the vehicle's left. We move around to the right and go past the deer on the right-hand side. So the Aurora driver is able to pick up, anticipate, and see.
Over 200 yards down the road, we detect an animal running across the freeway at night. This autonomous truck not only spots it through the darkness, but it also tracks and predicts its direction. Detecting situations like this early gives the Aurora driver the benefit of extra time, allowing it to keep hauling here without missing a beat.
Can we do that one more time, please?
Over 200 yards down the road, we detect an animal running across the freeway at night. This autonomous truck not only spots it through the darkness, but it also tracks and predicts its direction. Detecting situations like this early gives the Aurora driver the benefit of extra time, allowing it to keep hauling here without missing a beat.
So with that, the technology's advanced ever since I've been in this world for the last 5 years. But seeing that and seeing the way the Aurora driver picks up and anticipates which way that animal's going. One of the most gruesome collisions I worked was car versus elk in northern Arizona. It wasn't the collision, it was the elk ending up in the car that was the most traumatic part of that. So being able to have that technology and avoid a situation like that, you know, 2 people, if they would have had this type of technology, would maybe be alive today. So it's something that really stands out to me and makes a lot of sense. Now, here's some Darwin Award winners for you. That's the best way to describe it. Now, I've ridden motorcycles since I'm 15. I was 15, I was a motorcycle cop for 8.5 years, and not one time did I have the passion or desire to reach out and touch a trailer of an 18-wheeler. I don't think that's really smart, but it's a thing in Texas. You guys seen that at all here? Is people touching the sides of 18-wheelers? Do you guys know about that? I didn't think it was a fad, but we're doing it in Texas. The one thing about that, when they touched the side, the Aurora driver was moving to the left because it felt it had been touched. It knew it had been hit. And that's how detailed it is. But this next video, it must be his cousin, the Darwin Award winner. You'll see the truck start moving away. See how he starts moving away? The truck's actually trying to make a lane change. So when he's reaching out to touch the truck, it's right at the numbers at the front of the trailer on the right-hand side, which now he's going towards the center lane, which those buttons on the center lane could cause that front tire to wobble, which would have put him right underneath the duals when that whole thing, because he was at about a 45 when he went by the truck. The Aurora driver picked that up, started moving over, and was trying to avoid that rider. That's why he kept leaning into our truck. So building it the right way. Our safety case framework, not only do we want to make sure it's appropriate and it's proficient in what it can do daily, we validate those. Each thing we say we can do, we have to validate it and make sure we have evidence to validate it. So that's why all the testing, everything goes. It's very much reminiscent of the airline transportation checklist. Some things we do, it's fail-safe, redundancies in place. If there's an issue on the vehicle, it goes in a minimal risk condition. We have redundancies built in. It continually improves. The one thing that we do daily is we do over 1 million simulations a day, and 30 to 40 of those thousand of those simulations are first responder interactions between police, fire, and EMS. What are we saying? How can we keep building that Aurora driver being proficient in how to respond and how to react to public safety and the motoring public? Resilience and be trustworthy. The biggest thing for us, and you can get on LinkedIn, follow us on LinkedIn, Aurora. You can actually see our trucks driving from Dallas to Houston live every day. On every non-vehicle operator mission, you can watch it all the way down to Houston itself. So the redundancy built in the truck, the cooling system, the computer. The one thing I like to say about the computer, when I started in this industry, the computer was the size of the sleeper berth on the right-hand side. And now it's about the size of where the chairs are off the ground. It keeps getting smaller and smaller. For those of us old enough, the brick phones that we never lost a call because they're that big, it just keeps getting smaller. And that's exactly what's happened with this system. The steering, the braking, the power, it's all redundant. If there's any issues at all with any of those systems, it goes a minimal risk condition and pulls to the shoulder. And throughout our routes, we have preferred pullover locations. The last thing we want to do is stop in lane. And if we have an issue where the truck needs to stop, we're calling Texas Highway Patrol, letting them know we're having an issue in advance to get officers out there, because we know what that means. If we're partially blocking or blocking a lane, what that means for the motoring public. So we're in advance for our call center, our command center, to make sure make people aware that we're having an issue. We talked about simulations. We can run different types of vehicles. We run different kinds of scenarios, makes, models, size of vehicles, and we just keep running those simulations day in and day out. And people go, simulation, what is that? How does that help you? And I like to call it the first responders. We have FATS machines, Milo machines. They're all simulation based for lethal force calls for service and things that are happening out there. The fire service has the burning house, the firehouse. They go out there and practice in a controlled environment how it's going to respond in the real world. We do the same thing. Pilots from all the airlines find simulators. It happens. That's how you build your skill set and your repetition. And being able to run 1 million simulations a day is only going to make the Aurora driver better and make our response quicker. We wanted to take this one step further, so we took 29 fatal collisions that occurred on I-45 that the commercial motor vehicle was, we called it Vehicle 1, the causation, if you want to call it that, on I-45, and through the data, the police reports, we got all the data and uploaded it into the Aurora driver, and through the simulation, we threw it out to see how the Aurora driver is going to respond. In all 29 cases, the Aurora driver would have avoided the fatal collision. This one here, it's on a curve. The cars ended up in the center, blocking right between the 1 and 2 lane. The people were outside their vehicle handling what they needed to handle right after the collision occurred. A commercial motor vehicle came around the corner. The driver had 2 choices, go left or right, went right, and ran over those people outside their cars. Operating on the roadway. So our partners, we have PACCAR, Volvo, and Toyota for our ride-hailing side. Continental and NVIDIA is our partners. Ryder and Uber. But also our partners are, we're hauling freight, currently hauling freight for FedEx, Hirschbach, Schneider, Uber, and then Volvo and Werner. So we're out there day in and day out hauling commercial loads. April 27th was a big day for Aurora. We went driver out. Our CEO, Chris Armstrong, was in the back seat of the sleeper berth, and we went from Dallas to Houston and Houston back to Dallas in one day without a driver, without anybody except him sitting in the back seat. My daughter thought it was really, that's her birthday, so she thought it was great that Aurora did this on her birthday. She thought that was a good touch. But we held a dry-van, daytime weather, and it was incredible to see. We had debris in the big tire retread on the number 3 lane. We were able to go around that, which actually helped cars behind us see the tire sooner because we were able to get distance between it. All the way through stop-and-go traffic in downtown Houston to our terminal and back. This is the quickest 4-hour trip you guys are going to take down to Houston. But as you can see, there's no one behind the wheel. The LiDAR system down below, you can see the terrain. You can see the traffic going both northbound and southbound. This is an 8-minute video. I'm not going to show all 8 minutes, but I just want to highlight that the Aurora driver had no issues going down to Houston and nothing on the way back. I'll show you one thing we kind of ran into was interesting. So when people knew we're getting ready to go drive her out, they wanted to take pictures and try to be the first ones to let people know what we're doing and let investors know. So this, let's call them the paparazzi, was out there taking pictures. So they're slowing down to take pictures. I'm sure every state has a law that says you're impeding traffic, stopping for no reason, no hazard. So they're slowing down to take pictures. And we're about 300 yards from our terminal entrance. And they're stopping us and messing with us. And that happened on the way down a little bit. The Aurora driver didn't have any issues, dealt with it, and pulled in. Now on the way back, I don't have the video of this, but on the way back, they switched cars, and they were doing the same thing, taking pictures. They passed us and got in front of us. We're in the number 2 lane, doing 65, and they were taking pictures from the front. Well, then they couldn't get back over because traffic on I-45 is pretty significant. So they thought it'd be a great idea to just hit the brakes and just drop into the shoulder and go down the side of the truck and then get back behind us. So they did that on I-45 on a busy Sunday afternoon, and the Aurora driver moved over a little bit in the lane, nudged over, didn't overreact, didn't cause any other issues. The car got behind us and moved over. But for me, looking at that video, watching, there was a steady line of traffic passing us on the left-hand side. Any overreaction that anybody would have had from the car passing us on the right down the shoulder, loses control, goes across, we end up in the, all these things played back in my head of all the collisions I worked over those years with the overreaction, ends up in the center median, rolled over, or crossover with a head-on. And the Aurora driver handled it perfectly. So that was one of those moments for me that I knew, like, this is a game changer. That non-reaction was perfect. This is our routes right now. Like I said, the highlight route from DFW to Houston is what we run every day, the MVP route. But we're starting to move west. We're running El Paso. From DFW to El Paso is about a 10-hour run itself there. And then we're moving over to Phoenix. We have a terminal in Phoenix that we just opened. So our goal is to move back and forth between Phoenix and Dallas. That, like I said, that 15 to 17-hour run. This is our projection looking ahead. We have some conversation tomorrow about what the 10-year future looks like for us. 10 years is a long time in the tech world, so we'll kind of forecast the best we can. But we're going to unlock the nighttime. So like I talked about earlier with our safety case framework, we have to validate and check, and I'll have that redundancy in place before we go and run in a different operational design domain. Nighttime, weather's a big issue. I know we talk about cold weather. We're testing in Montana right now. We talked to Montana DOT. We want to get the cold weather. We want to work with ice and snow. Also the heat, extreme heat. We're in Death Valley, mountain passes. So we're testing all those locations now to get the best data and to start building that system out. Rain, heavy winds, and then again, Fort Worth to Phoenix, you can see we're by the end of Q4 2025, that's where we should be. Everybody talks about jobs, about you're going to impact jobs, the workforce. Well, we all know in here that there's a driver shortage. And for me, with Bart and all the guys who are retired from law enforcement, hiring law enforcement officers isn't any different. No one wants to do that job either. We're just trying to augment that middle mile where there's a shortage of drivers. My grandfather was a professional driver, worked for years. It's just a calling that people have. You can work in this industry. You can start today as a commercial professional driver and drive your entire career. In the entire industry, there's less than 100 trucks, autonomous vehicles, trucks out there running. So we're going to build this in. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, and it's going to be just a standardized, systematic approach to getting vehicles out there. But the middle mile is where the autonomous vehicle will work the best, because that's where it's over the hours of service for a traditional driver. When you're running over 13, 14, 15, 16 hours, now you're making progress on how we're going to move goods and services. The jobs are going to change. We talked about, I remember my grandfather talking about how it went from rail to airline back in the 40s and 50s. I kind of see the same transition here. You're looking at some jobs that are normally with motor carriers or terminal operators getting ready to launch these vehicles every day. The technicians to work on the AV system and getting it running. The command center specialist, that's more like an air traffic, to me it's a hybrid between an air traffic control center and a public safety dispatch center. Everything's happening and moving, and they have constant eyes on the vehicle at all times. And fleet dispatch and CDL, our CDLs are still going to be a part of it. We're always going to test, and we're always going to have to move things. It's not anything, the CDLs aren't going away. We're just going to try to make everything run smoother. AV Job Coalition provides research for economic impacts on AV advancement. We know this is going to have a positive effect on the industry. Friends that I know that have moved over from their traditional CDL jobs to us, being at home at night, being with their family, being able to coach their Little League teams, be a part of their lives and not be on the road for 8 to 12 weeks. It's been a game changer for them. So our CDLs, the best way I can describe them is the ones we hire, the professional drivers, are like the Blue Angels of drivers. We hire the best, and they have the most experience. And one of the best drivers I had that worked for me was a 72-year-old Vietnam vet, and he absolutely loved technology. He thought it was great. And my dad was a Vietnam vet and hated technology, and here's Barry just absolutely loving it to see what the future holds. So you have these experts in what they do every day, embracing the technology and wanting to move forward. It's scary, change is scary, and people don't know how it's going to impact them. But I'll tell you, from a public safety side, if we can start moving that needle and saving one life at a time, doing the right thing with these autonomous vehicles, I think we're on the right path. That's my presentation. I have time for questions if you guys have any. Yes, sir.
So how does technology deal with construction zones like lane closures, or if you have a detour route or something like that set up?
Okay, this is so much better because I can actually see you guys. Detours and lane closure. We work with DOTs a lot about when they're going to have a hard closure for extended amount of time, that we can map that into our system. We have spontaneous guardrail construction, or a collision occurs that makes a taper, correct? So what we're able to do is the Aurora driver sees that. We had barrels blow off a trailer, the orange barrels, and we're on the roadway rolling around. The Aurora driver was able to navigate that by itself through those orange barrels. So it does that. We built that into that. But the distance it sees out and makes that lane change over sooner just creates less havoc for the motoring public, but we're able to see it quicker and adjust to it. And we've tested at tracks to build that AI as well. So when we talk about traffic incident management, we work with first responders, toll, and DOT. So that's the reason TIMS is such a prevalent part of what we do, is because we want to follow that traffic incident management, because we know we're doing it by the numbers. We're doing it the right way. Yes, sir.
For the 14-hour trip, how does refueling work?
How does refueling work? So what we do is we have a terminal-to-terminal base model right now, which is very similar to what you do in an airplane. You fly from Phoenix to Dallas, they refuel it, do the check, and send it on its way. We don't stop at truck stops, we don't stop at rest areas. So all of our fuel is on site, and we refuel the trucks before we launch again. So it's all done on Aurora facilities. We don't have to gas, we don't have to stop at Midland for a truck stop to fuel up. We do it terminal to terminal. And the great thing about that on the public safety side, if you look at the criminal syndicates that try to utilize this technology for smuggling guns, drugs, people, and money, our trucks don't stop at rest areas. They don't stop at truck stops. So if it's constantly in motion, how are you going to add those type of things to the truck unless it's going to be an employee, correct? Or someone that has access to the vehicle. So we're mitigating that, and especially in the southern region with human trafficking being such a prevalent thing on the border, we want to make sure we have eyes and ears. We have a great relationship with United States Border Patrol. There's 2 inland checkpoints on I-10 that we have to navigate, one in Las Cruces and one in Sierra Blanca. We've been in partnership with them for 3 years. We have constant trends. They can come to our terminals, do inspections on our trucks before they leave. They run their canines. Again, this has been cooperation like I've never seen in my career, just the transparency back and forth between the two. Because nowadays you can't work in a silo. You have to work as a collaborated effort. Yes, ma'am.
Gary, so, well, that's really loud. So as you're traversing the I-10 corridor in Phoenix and you're governing your trucks at 65, so the speed limit on there is 75, as you know. Is there any concern about driving slower than what might be prudent, especially knowing that those of us who live there drive 85?
Yes, and I can one-up you because Texas, right? So Texas is, over in Midland, Odessa, is 80 miles an hour. No one runs 80 miles an hour. So we run 65 in that same stretch. And what we found is no one even pays attention to us. They move over and pass us. The great thing about running at 65 is that we can see, we've never had a complaint about impeding traffic as an issue, anything like that. Just the opposite. We get more compliments on being courteous. Stay in the right-hand lane. We're not trying to get in the number one lane and slow down. And one thing I want to ask you, since Arizona, someone asked me that, well, you have to run at 65 as a truck in Arizona. I said, no, the speed limit in Arizona is 75. So I just want to confirm, I'm correct still, right? You guys didn't change anything since I retired.
I was just on I-10 2 days ago, and it's still 75.
Thank you for the confirmation. Since you were here, I figured I'd ask. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Hang on a second. We'll wait for a mic so people can hear you.
I know Aurora is a big company to focus on the self-driving. So I want to ask a tech question. Is like, when you apply these kind of self-driving technologies to trucks and compare it to small cars, what's the most difficult part when you do that? Thanks.
I think understanding time distance. The better you can see, the longer you can see out, you can make decisions. And it's a little bit different because your ride hailing is different. There's so many new nuances to ride hailing in city streets. You have intersections, you have alleyways, you have pedestrian parkways, you have things going on, bike lanes. On the highway, one, we need time distance to make sure we can react to it and stop and take evasive action when we need to. But there's not as much pedestrian traffic, bicycling traffic. There's two different animals. So everybody wants to kind of lump AVs into, hey, we're all AVs. We are, but there's such a nuance to ride-hailing side, and there's such a nuance to the commercial vehicle side. You can't really mix them together. But for me, on the commercial vehicle side, it's the weight of the vehicle, the size of the vehicle, the speed at which it's running. We need to have the time to see it, and that's what our LiDAR provides. Our long-range LiDAR gets us to the point where we can react quickly and efficiently and shut things down before they go bad. You bet.
You mentioned the trucks have the redundant safety systems. Can you talk more about how, like, your safety systems on the test trucks of the Peterbilts, how that's different than a dedicated redundant platform like the VNL Autonomous? Do you guys add 2 brake systems and 2 steering systems?
Yeah, so what we do is we build in redundancy. So if there's an issue with it, we break it out into 3 parts, if you will. If part A doesn't work properly, it moves to part B. Which is another braking or redundant system. If there's an issue with that system, now I wish all my tech guys, my engineers are here to answer your question specifically. You just got the motor cop that's going to help you with this. So if it gets to where they're having issues on both those, it'll go in a minimal risk condition and pull the shoulder. We don't want anything, nothing's going to be released in the wild. We can't stop it. If there's an issue that occurs, it's going to the shoulder as fast as we can get it there. So for us, for the braking side of it, when we test at TRC Ohio and things like that, we even did blowout testing of steer tires at our terminals, how it's going to react at our facilities with a front steer blowout. So I hope that answered your question. You got the motor cop and not the engineer that went to MIT. But the fact is we build it in, that redundancy, just so if we have an issue, it stops it immediately. You're getting your steps in, going back and forth.
Gary, I understand you're fueling in your own centers, so that would kind of answer the question for pre-trips and post-trips. But what about, say, like a company like ours, we're doing hazmat, different things that we're required to do, interstops, you know, and say you had a a failure of a mechanical sort, a wheel seal, something, how would you detect something like that on a trailer? How would the Aurora driver react to that?
I'm glad you asked. So before we do you talk about the pre-trip inspection. So John Silva's here from CVSA. He's going to talk to you tomorrow about the enhanced pre-trip inspection. So the enhanced pre-trip inspection, let's just call it parallels what level 1 roadside inspectors do for law enforcement. We go underneath the truck, we inspect these trucks at that standard, and it's 0 defect at launch. So the truck can't have any defects to the vehicle before it leaves. If there's something in transit, which we've tested with the TRC Ohio, blown tires, we create things for the Aurora driver have to deal with. And that's where we build that redundancy, where how's it going to react to a blown tire? Like you said, a seal goes out, the airlines get cut. We had that happen on a trailer. A retread came off and took the airlines off the brakes of the trailer. We induce those things at the track so the Aurora driver knows how to respond. It doesn't overreact. It just gets the shoulder, gets over as far as it can, and comes to a stop safely. But the biggest thing with the enhanced pre-trip, and you know this because just the question, you focus on maintenance and safety. If you take good care of your equipment, it's probably going to take good care of you. So we don't launch things. We can't launch things that aren't up to a 0 defect standard. And John's going to talk about that more. But the transparency with that, with the enhanced pre-trip, so we can run, say you're staying married, that truck and trailer staying married from Phoenix to Dallas. That we're good for, that inspection's good for 24 hours straight. We don't have to do another enhanced inspection before that 24-hour mark. So we can literally run 24 hours under that one inspection. There's nothing else to do after that. Does that answer your question? Any other questions? These are great.
I was just curious how your development process is going and to be able to handle northern climates, snow and ice, and, well, southern climates with big dust storms like we saw in Phoenix a couple weeks ago. But how's that process going, and when can we expect to be able to go from Grand Forks to Texas?
I would love to turn that on tomorrow.
Trucks?
Yeah, so we have to build that knowledge, that data, right? And that's why we're testing in Montana on snow and ice. We're just building that out with mountain passes. That's another thing. The same driver I was saying about Barry Lee. I said, Barry, how many times did you chain up in your career? He goes, if I have to chain up, I shouldn't be on the road. I thought that was a pretty good point. Why should I be out there if I don't have to, run with chains? Our goal, and Nick, you saw how we're unlocking things to 2024 and 2025. We're testing now in Montana. We're testing in Arizona. Being retired from Arizona, I'm full aware of sandstorms and dust storms that come in, how quickly, and the visibility on I-10 between Casa Grande. I'm sure it's still the same hotspot, Tucson and Casa Grande, and Phoenix and Casa Grande, where we'll have multiple 35, 40-car pileups because of a sandstorm or a dust storm. So all those things we do to test and get that with, but our weather forecast, the great thing about that 24-hour clock I was telling you about is if we know a dust storm's coming or we know a storm's coming, we don't have to launch. We can just hold and wait because there's no hours of service we're going by. Now we just wait and hold, and then once the storm goes by, then we launch. Or the storm's so bad, like we have in Texas on I-20, that the snow shuts it down, I-20 for 2 days. We don't launch until the road's clear. Why are we going to induce more traffic or more issues to first responders with launching more trucks out there? It just doesn't make sense. So we're able to forecast that. I actually sat on a meeting with NASA. They had a weather consortium, if you want to call it that, about how do we forecast weather better to be more efficient for autonomous trucks. So we're building that as we go. And the biggest thing is just time. And I told you it's a marathon. So we're solving for all these things, especially when you talk about Colorado and some of the mountain passes they have up there and Montana, of course. We have to solve for that ahead of time to make sure we don't overheat the brakes and things like that. So we're testing all that now, and we'll continue to test. And as we deploy to other regions of the country, we'll move forward. You had a question. There's your mic right there.
The predictability portion of your radars and LiDARs is very impressive, but I'm just curious, how many miles do you have autonomously over the course of 2 or 3 years?
I thought I had that on the front slide. We just hit 50,000 driverless miles and over Richard, that slide you had? 3 million total miles, driverless miles, but we just hit 50,000 driver out miles.
Okay. As being in the trucking industry, it is the unpredictable that often gets us in trouble, even if you've got a driver and a truck that's working. Have you had any accidents that completely out of your control that the system, after it's damaged, has been able to compensate for?
We haven't had, we had one of our front LiDARs get hit with a retread.
That's the type I was
So
thinking. Yeah.
what we had is the system itself does a check. Can it get it to the destination and still maintain it? And it did. It could have gone to all the way. We decided to have the driver take over, but the system was still functioning properly, that we could have got to our terminal with that LiDAR being out. Because we still had all those other LiDARs functioning properly. But you asked, we've been hit several times.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lady fall asleep and drive, hit us in the back duals of the tractor. We had a couple side swipes, lost control on the wet road. We had one commercial driver in a box truck who was on his cell phone, which the great thing about our camera system is we basically have an armed robbery camera system on our truck, and he's on his cell phone and the mirror brushed the side of the trailer and registered as a collision. So we can pick up all those things as well. But yeah, the system will monitor itself, and if it can continue to this destination, it will.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. What, any other questions?
Much for that.
I think there's one
Oh,
more.
you do have another question?
I guess two more.
Yeah. Yes, I just wanted to know, will the AVs be more effective if we were building infrastructure that are responsive to them, or adapting to them?
Well, like we always tell people, if you want to build us more techie roads, that'd be awesome. But all we need is good roads and clear lines, then we'll run anywhere. And I think if you look at states, retiring from the state of Arizona, each state has their own budget and how they refurbish their line. What's their time frame to have a certain roads repaired or fixed or updated? And budgets change from state to state and what's prevalent at that time. So if we just have good roads with good lines, we can run. That's all we need. But if more tech, yeah, that'd be great. But the bare minimum is just what I said. One more, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, I said, that was you.
Can you comment on the software stack? Is it rule-based or is it completely AI-driven?
I'm sorry.
The software stack for controlling the entire system, is it rule-based still or is it now completely AI-driven?
No, it's not completely AI-driven.
Okay.
We used to utilize AI as a function to build that system.
Okay.
Yep. All right, everybody. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Gary and Alex, for that great session. That was a tremendous set of videos that we saw from Aurora, and I know there was a lot of preparation time went into that, and so I want to thank Gary, and also want to thank Sydney Journal of Aurora, who is not here, would love to have been here, and she'll be watching the recording of this. So thank you, Sydney, for all that prep work and for all your help with the conference.